Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the March meeting of the Philadelphia Land Bank Board. We will start with an announcement from our attorney about holding virtual meetings.
Good morning, everyone. Today's board meeting is being held by an authorized communication device because of the continued closure of land bank offices to the public due to public health concerns. This meeting is being recorded. Questions and comments can be made using the Q&A or raised hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in and not using the Zoom webinar link, you can ask questions or make comments by pressing *9 on your phone or using the raise hand function at the bottom of your phone screen. Please do not use the chat function. If any member of the public has issues submitting questions or comments, please send an email to andrea.sa@phdc.phila.gov, and that will be placed in the chat. Please note all questions and comments received by email prior to this meeting or through the Q&A section will be included in today's meeting's minutes. Also, prior to today's public session, the board held an executive session at which it reviewed today's meeting agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, and roll call.
Ann Fadulin.
Here.
Majida Rashid.
Here.
Rick Sauer.
Here.
Andrew Goodman.
Here.
Rich DeMarco.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Maria Gonzalez.
Here.
Michael Koontz.
Here.
Michael Johns. Rebecca Lopez Chris.
I'm here.
Alexander Balloon. Okay, so we have 2 absent, 1 vacancy, so we have 8 members present. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll start with approval of the minutes from the February 14th Land Bank Board meeting. Hopefully the board has had a chance to review those minutes. If there's no questions or comments or edits, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve February meeting minutes.
I second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the minutes of the February 14th, 2023 Land Bank Board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Executive Director's report.
Good morning, everybody. Today, I'd like to call you to your attention to the package of just in terms of talking about progress that the land bank has made. You'll see in the first chart that was provided, we have issued and approved 14 RFPs across the city in the 1st, 2nd, and 4th, also 5th districts. Of those, we've approved about 516 units of affordable housing. Currently, what we are doing is focusing on, obviously, the land bank has to go through a process of consolidating deeds into the land bank to then go to settlement. So we're doing that. We have some that will be going into closing on April. Others we have closed and are in the process of being developed as we speak. The second half of the lower portion of that chart in the first chart of the first page, you'll see unsolicited affordable applications. Now, these are not RFPs. These are applications that were submitted to us by developers. These are in the 1st, 7th, and 5th districts and 2nd. These are following the disposition policy of a mixed income. With that, we've approved 116 units of affordable housing. At this point, we are also here. We have 2 that have settled and are under construction, and then we are moving towards 3 that are under construction, and others we're moving towards settlement this month and next month. So before I move on to the next one, does anybody have any questions? So the second chart that was placed into the package for everybody to concern is an overall view. This chart, as you've seen before, really talks about the progress that the land bank has made across, our goals for the year. You'll see that what the, strategic plan disposition targets are at the top. And then what we're showing is, because we have to move everything into the land bank, there are things at different various stages. But you'll note that we are, in terms of, housing unit production and approval, we're 300 times higher than what we had projected. Again, it's just a real administrative issue of getting the deeds legally transferred and conveying free and clear title. Also, we're moving towards closing on side yards, and there are other items like business expansion, as well as gardens and open space. Any questions from the board? So that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Angel. All right, and we'll go on to the next section of the agenda, which are a series of administrative matters.
Yes, so we received a letter of recusal from board member Maria Gonzalez because these next three resolutions pertain to ASE Affordable Housing Corporation, of which she is the president. So she will be turning off her audio and video during these sessions, during these resolutions. The resolution under agenda item 4A is it pertains to the sale of a property that the land bank conveyed to ASE in July of 2021. The developer is asking the board to approve the termination of the declaration of restrictive covenants with respect to that property, which was 3028 North American Street, and to not impose any of the penalties provided in the purchase and development agreement for ASE's default under the purchase and development agreement and the declaration of restrictive covenants pertaining to that property. Just by way of a quick background, the board approved the conveyance of 9 properties, including 3028 North American Street, to ASE for the development of the properties for affordable home ownership and the sale of the land and homes to income qualified purchasers making not more than 80% of AMI, area median income, with a minimum affordability period of 10 years and a maximum affordability period of 30 years. The application was unsolicited at the time, evaluated pursuant to the disposition policy, and the properties were sold to the developer for $1 each. A year after the properties were conveyed, the ASE notified the land bank that it wished to transfer the properties and the homes built on them to Good Lands Trust, which is a nonprofit corporation that is wholly owned by ASE, and also to sell, that they wish to sell only the homes to purchasers retaining ownership of the land in the land trust to ensure permanent affordability. 4 months after that initial inquiry, the developer conveyed 3028 North American Street to its land trust, and the land trust then sold the home built on the land to a purchaser and leased the land to the buyer instead of selling it. These actions occurred without the land bank's knowledge and consent, and without complying with obligations under the purchase and development agreement and the declaration of restrictive covenants that was reported against all 9 properties. As a result, under the PDA, ASE and the land trust are now in default under the purchase and development agreement and the declaration of restrictive covenants, and this is considered an incurable default. And furthermore, the provisions of the sales agreement and lease used by the land trust are not compatible with the provisions of the declaration of restrictive covenants. Now, under the provisions of the PDA, the penalty for an unauthorized transfer is the payment of 50% of the sales price to the land bank. In addition, the land bank has the right to revert title to the premises back to the land bank and to take possession of it. The board package contained a much more detailed description of the events and the individual violations. which the board has hopefully reviewed. And so the staff's recommendation is that, given that the land bank does not wish to penalize the buyer as a result of ASE's and the land trust action, and given that the imposition of the financial penalty would present a hardship to ASE and the land trust, the staff recommends that the board approve the termination of the declaration of restrictive covenants with respect to the premises, with respect to 3028 North American Street, and that the board agree to not impose the penalties for the default that are provided in the PDA. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And did we receive any email comments about this item prior to the meeting?
We received a memo from Harry Tapia, who's the director of operations for ASE, pertaining to, sorry, I'm just trying to look for it. Pertaining to all three resolutions, and ASE's comment with respect to this one was ASE is in agreement with the staff recommendation. The economic hardship to ASE is further reason for the board to also approve one of the other resolutions, but they had no comment to this, and there were no other public comments.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this item? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? We do have one hand raised. Can we unmute Harry Tapia, please?
Hey, good morning, Board of Directors. Again, my name is Harry Tapia, Director of Operations at ASE. We definitely welcome the recommendation of the board. We do apologize, regarding this, default. It's never happened to us before. We were, this was in the middle of COVID. We were really ambitious trying to get this project, completed and sold, and, sort of, got a little bit of ahead of ourselves. So again, wanted to apologize regarding this default. And again, ASE has never had any issue like this before. And we will definitely, take the recommendation of the staff when it comes to item A. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carlos Rendon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carlos Rendon. I am a staffer here with Councilmember Lozada's office, and speaking on behalf of the office, the council member is supportive of this resolution.
Great, thank you, Mr. Rendon. And next we have Nefertiti Stanford. Go ahead, Ms. Stanford, you're unmuted. And Ms. Stanford no longer has her hand up. Stanford, do you have a comment for the board on this item? All right, doesn't look like it. So I'm going to ask for a motion from the board.
I had a question for Harry.
Sure.
Harry,
Sure.
for the sake of the public, are you able to articulate the difference between what you're proposing and what you originally proposed? Is he there?
Are we able to get Harry back? There we go.
Hey, so originally, we, again, proposed to develop these with restrictions, resale restrictions, right? We were challenged in order to try, something innovative, which is a land trust. The difference between having just regular restrictions would be that, you can have a home that would have a 10-year restriction that then could be sold to another market rate buyer. Under our Good Lands Trust, we will have restrictions where that home would stay low income into perpetuity, which means that, that first home buyer, once they're ready to move on to their second home, then they would have to sell that home to another buyer that's at 80% or less of area median income.
But okay, so what are the risks to the home buyer in this situation?
So you can, the home buyer really doesn't have a risk. Again, they take a chance at the market, right? And, they're trying to generate wealth, right? Through purchasing a home. This model allows them to generate wealth because there is a resale formula where they're able to resell. After 10 years, there's a resale formula where they can sell the property up to 4%, 4 times 60% of AMI. So they're still able to generate wealth. The only restriction would be that they would need to sell it to another, low-income family.
Harry, can you explain what you just said? They can sell it at 4% up to 4 times 60% of median.
Correct.
What does that mean?
So we all right. So we have a resale formula, right? And there's 2 aspects of it. The first 10 years, they accumulate very little wealth because we want them to, be in the community and be part of the community and take part of the revitalization of the community. So for the first 10 years, they are able to appreciate to 5% of purchase price. After year 11, then there's a resale formula where they can sell the property, right? If you take 60% of AMI for a family of 4, that annual amount, you times it by 4, then that is what they can sell the property for.
Okay, so I just want to make an example, right? So the first 10 years, they can only increase it by a certain percent.
Correct.
The value by a certain percent. But in year 11, let's say a house affordable to 60% of median was $100,000, just to make the math easy. They could potentially sell the house for $400,000.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, up to $400,000, but they need to sell it to somebody that's at 80% of AMI.
Right. So the reality is they can only sell it at, it's not really capped at 4 times 60%. It's really capped at whatever is affordable to somebody who could pay at 80%. So for example, 4 times 60 could be 400, but the 80% price could be 250, and what they can really sell it at would be the 250. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Which is still,
Right.
And then the main thing about this, right? We are building these at $340,000. We're selling these with the first one that we sold it at 160. So that 250 is still double the amount of equity that you earn, right? So when I think about a homeowner, right, you're able to go into a new construction property at a really minimal mortgage, anywhere from 160 to 180, and year 11 be able to double the amount of equity that you built. So it's a win-win for the buyer, right? Because you're not walking into a property that needs repair. It's a property that's brand new construction. So you mitigate your risk up front. You're buying a property that's 100% new. And so that's, again, that's also the value that we're adding, through the land trust. Because you can go down the block, the houses on Kensington Courts, they're up for $450,000, the same model that we're selling.
Mr. Tapia, like your description of the resale price isn't consistent with my understanding of how this all goes down. Andrea, is it possible for you to go through this again? And can we figure out where the discrepancy is?
Yes, sure. So Exhibit B of the board package pertaining to this resolution, there's a table showing how the resale price is calculated. Harry, if I may call you that,
Yes,
Can you just clarify, my understanding was that the lease provides that it's 3 times the income of a family of 4 at 60% of AMI, not 4 times? Was that a
correct.
misunderstanding on my part?
sorry, it's 3 times, correct, 3
Okay,
times.
3 times, okay. So, and then that is one type of calculation that is used after the first 10 years. That's called the formula price. And then the other way, the other calculation is the purchaser's ownership interest at resale, which is a basically a complicated calculation based on what the purchase price was originally compared to the appraised value of the land in the home. And then that's multiplied times the market value at the time, or the appraised value at the time of resale. And the land trust chooses, basically it's the lower of those 2 prices, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there are examples in that table of what it would be after at the $160,000 sale price and the $200,000 appraised value at the time it was sold, what the resale price would be after 3 years and then after 10 years. And that's making, of course, certain assumptions about the increase in value, things like that. Any
Thank
other
you, Andrea. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, and I
Okay.
just was wondering if there were any, I mean, it's a complicated formula, but.
Any other questions? And just to remind the board, this one is about the consent to sell that the one property, or is that right? No, it's the termination of the declaration of restricted covenants on the one property.
It's just that one
that
property and then
got
the rest are the original deal.
Yeah, and then we'll get to the rest of it.
So I know that ASE has provided a number of documents. But I mean, I'm looking at the timeline for how this all went down, and like, they made a request for us to change it. There was a slow response and then they just sold it anyway. Is that correct? I'm looking at page 19 of the board packet.
Are you asking me? Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I wasn't clear. I'm, on my side, I'm looking at you.
Oh. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I can't see that. Yes, so there was a request to permit assignment to the land trust of all the properties in July of last year. And then we started reviewing all the documents to see what that would entail. And then as we were going through that and, we receiving drafts and then final versions and things like that, then 3028 was sold well, actually the agreement of sale was signed before the request was made to us, but then it was sold in October. In October of last year.
Sherry, do you want to make a quick comment on that?
Yes, I do.
I haven't see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we've been providing information on our land trust going back into the summer. We were, as Andrea mentioned, right? So we were drafting and putting together our stewardship plan. So they requested information as we were going back and working with our consultants to finalize it and working with regional legal housing services, we were providing the information. So it wasn't as if we were not sort of front coming with what we had. Is as Andrea asked for revisions, then we went back, met with our consultants, met with our legal attorneys to make sure that we provided the correct answers. But it was way before the summer that we had the intention and notified the land bank that we were building a land trust.
Harry, could you just be very clear? At the time of the sale, we did not provide authority for you to assign it to the land trust, did we?
No, that is correct. And again, I started off this meeting apologizing. We got ahead of ourselves.
So
We've been working at this from, from the
you
beginning.
requested a change. We were working at it. We were requesting issues. That was an ongoing process. And during that time, it was the decision on the part of ASE was to proceed with the sale under a format that hadn't been approved, correct?
That is correct. But again, if the land bank would have said, hey, this is definitely not going to fly, then we would have been different. We thought we were working at it. And yes, again, I apologize. We got ahead of ourselves and we were moving very quickly. It was,
So I
but
think.
we were under the sort of the frame that we were working to get this done and that it would be something achievable.
So I guess, I mean, I think no one wants to get in the way or penalize the purchaser of the building. However, how does ASE intend to prevent this type of oversight from happening again?
Well, very quickly, we've lost, I want to say 4 buyers since, we notified the land bank of selling the first home. So we take this very serious. Again, we've been around since 1982. We've never been in default in any of the funding or the city programs that we've dealt with. So we take this very serious. And again, that's why I started off apologizing, because this was uncharacteristic. We were dealing in the pandemic. We were, really moving to get this done. We built 5 houses. We had 3 break-ins. So we were really motivated to get somebody in there in order to stop the bleeding and stop the houses from getting robbed. We had 3 break-ins, that was another $80,000 that we had to pay in additional to building these. So, we went in defensive mode, like, all right, we have a buyer, let's hurry up and get them in there so that we can protect the homes. We've completed all 9 now. We've really been waiting and trying to work with the land bank to make sure that we do get the approval to put them in the land trust. So to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Again, we're dealing, during COVID and, our project was getting broken into. We were trying to hurry up and get, somebody in there to prevent that from continuing to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And can I get a motion on item 4A, which is the termination declaration of restrictive covenants for 3028 North American Street?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and properly seconded to terminate the declaration of restrictive covenants for 3028 North American Street. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. That brings us to item 4B, which is the issuance of consent to sell letters.
Thank you, Chair. Today, the request comes again from ASE. The board's requested to authorize the issuance of consent to sell letters to ASE for homes constructed on 19, 21, 23, and 25 and 27 East Somerset Street, and also on 3022, 3024, and 3026 North American Street, collectively referred to in this package as the premises. Looking to get those authorizations for the consent to sell and the authorization for the issuance of a certificate of completion upon the completion of the entire project. Just a bit of background. The land bank entered into a purchase and development agreement with ASE dated in July of 2021, specifically for the development of 9 affordable homeownership units that were located at 3022, 3024, 3026, and 3028 North American Street, as well as 19, 21, 23, 25, and 27 East Somerset Street, referred to as the project in this package. Pursuant to the agreement, ASE was required to, amongst other things, adhere to the following requirements with regard to the project itself: an economic opportunity plan requirements, also referred to as EOP, the permission to proceed with the sale of these units in the project, marketing requirements, income certification requirements, and inspection requirements. On October 31st of 2022, ASE requested the land bank's consent to sell the unit located and completed at 3024 American Street. They were provided with a checklist of these items as the aforementioned items. It was then brought to the land bank's attention that on December 5th, well, it was brought to the land bank's attention on December 5th of 2022 that ASE had already sold the unit completed at 3028 North American on October 11th, 2022, without adhering to any of the requirements in the agreement. This ultimately placed ASE in default of the executed agreement. To address ASE's request to sell 3024 and the unauthorized sale of 3028, the land bank took the following steps and corrective actions to bring the developer back into compliance to the extent possible. Their first step was regarding EOP. The staff reached out to the city's compliance unit to confirm if these requirements were met and determined that the EOP was not monitored due to an oversight. Because of this, the department tasked with monitoring the economic opportunity plan cannot sign off on the project. ASE was then contacted to ascertain if documentation was available to evidence the efforts made to hire minority-owned business enterprises and women-owned business enterprises as well. In response, ASE provided the information that would allow for the compliance unit to assess ASE's economic opportunity plan performance. Upon compliance's review, it determined that ASE had met the requirement for hiring women-owned business enterprises, but did not meet the requirement for hiring minority-owned business enterprises. The project's current near completion status minimizes the likelihood of meeting this requirement overall. Second step we took were regarding income certifications. ASE submitted income certification packages to the land bank for the home buyers of 3024 and 3028 on December 7th, 2022. Staff approved each home buyer as compliant with the income requirements on the project on December 15th of 2022. We then took inspections as the next step. The land bank received certificates of occupancy for all 4 of the units that were built on American Street. And these units were then inspected on December 9th of 22. Land bank confirmed that the development of these used units they adhered to the approved plans set forth in the purchase agreement. So today, should the board approve the issuance of the consent to sell letters for ASE for the affordable homes and the issuance of a certificate of completion upon the completion of the project, ASE must comply with all its obligations and requirements under the agreement in order to receive a consent to sell for affordable homes and receive a certificate of completion following the completion of the project, including but not limited to the following items. ASE may not market or enter into an agreement of sale of a unit without first allowing PHA to market the unit for the first 30 days, with the land bank determining the beginning of that marketing period. The land bank must also be notified of the completion of a unit and receive certificates of occupancy from ASE. Land bank must also inspect any completed unit to ensure adherence to plans and then may issue a consent to sell to ASE. ASE must also notify the land bank of a prospective buyer by submitting documentation to the land bank for the buyer's income certification, along with a required land bank rider to the agreement of sale signed by the prospective buyer. So today, staff's recommendation is that the board approve this resolution to permit the consent to sell letters for the homes constructed on 3022, 3024, and 3026 North American Street, and 19, 21, 23, 25, and 27 East Somerset Street, and ultimately also the issuance of a certificate of completion for the project, subject to the developer's full compliance with the terms of the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions or comments from the board on this item? Seeing none, do we have any members? Oh, I'm sorry. Someone have a question? All of a sudden I heard something. Any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Can we unmute Carlos Rendon, please?
Hello, this is Carlos Rendon again on behalf of Councilmember Lozada. She is in support of this resolution for item 4B. Thank you.
Thank you. And Harry Tapia.
Hey, good afternoon again. So just wanted to sort of go over what ASE did. And again, sort of apologize for, this project not going sort of, as planned. Usually what happens is we have a kickoff meeting when we have a city funded project where we go over every single item. And because of COVID, we really didn't get a chance to go over this one in detail. And, again, some steps were missed. Also wanted to reiterate, we were working on the COVID, so it really, really was challenging for us to find minorities that we can have participate in this project. We did these modular, so that really reduced the amount of opportunities that we can have. We did do our best efforts. We did reach out to the ones, we had 3 minority contractors that we felt could handle this type of work. And unfortunately, because they were working on other projects, they didn't have the capacity to also bid on this work because all of their projects were delayed. So we end up still, just about meeting our obligations. It was just inverted, right? So we were at 25% for WBE. And we were at 6% for MBE, and we're still working to get, we did have a security company because, again, once we didn't get the consent to sell, we had to get a security company to monitor these properties to make sure that they weren't broken into. So we're working with the Enterprise Center right now to get them certified, and that should definitely boost us up to at least 10% MBE and then 25% WBE, which would be 35% combined.
Thank you, Harry. I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So if there's no other questions or comments from the board, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the issuance of consent to sell letters for properties on North American Street and East Somerset Street. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries, and that brings us to item 4C, which is, this is a mouthful, amendment, assignment, and assumption of developer obligations under purchase and development agreement and amendment of declaration of restrictive covenants for properties on East Somerset Street and North American Street. And Andrea, I'm sorry, last item I forgot if there were public comment. I assume there was nothing too relevant that came in advance, even though I did write that notice to myself, but let's hear this one and then I'm definitely going to remember to refer to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good afternoon. Good morning, board. So this item 4C is ASE's request to approve number 1, a modification in the use of the premises, meaning the land, allowing the developer to retain title to the premises indefinitely and to sell only the improvements erected on the land and to lease the land to qualified purchasers under different provisions than those contained in the purchase and development agreement and the declaration of restrictive covenants. Number 2, to convey the premises with all the homes constructed on them on the land to Good Lands Trust, its assignee. And sorry, let me just, very distracting. And number 3, to assign ASE's rights and responsibilities under the PDA and the purchase and development agreement and the declaration of restrictive covenants as amended for the modified use to Good Lands Trust. So back by way of background, again, this was very similar to what I described. This is the same as what I described in the first, with respect to the first resolution. The homes were to be sold to purchasers with a household income at or below 80% of AMI with a minimum and maximum affordability period of 10 years up to 30 years. The resale provisions during that affordability period would allow for a modest increase in equity during that compliance period, while ensuring that the home would be sold, home and land, to a future home buyer who is income qualified at or below 80% of area median income. Again, 12 months after we went through all the sequence that the ASE requested the transfer of the properties in the homes to Good Lands Trust. Subsequently, ASE has indicated that it wishes to sell 3024 North American Street under the original provisions of the project, meaning home and land would be sold outright to the buyer. So this request pertains only to the remaining 7 properties in the project, which are 19, 21, 23, 25, and 27 East Somerset Street, and 3022 and 3026 North American Street. So I just wanted to briefly provide a summary of because this is very relevant here, comparison of the land bank and land trust sale, resale, and lease provisions. And these are in written form in Exhibit B to this fact sheet. Both have a resident, both the land bank and the land trust have a residency requirement that this be the primary residence of the purchaser. Renting of the home is not permitted under land bank regulations. Under the land trust, it is permitted with their consent, but the rent amount is restricted. The income level restrictions are the same. It's up to 80% of AMI, although the land trust is trying to lower that to homeowners with a lower area median income. The affordability period restrictions are minimum of 10 years, maximum of 30 years. For the land bank, for the land trust, it is a 99-year lease to the homeowner, which can be renewed by their heirs, I suppose. The sale price permitted under the Declaration of Restrictive Covenants in the land bank is $195,000, no more than $195,000. The land trust sold its first home at $160,000 and intends to sell the remaining 7 homes at $190,000. Ownership under the land bank's model is land and improvements, and under the land trust model is the improvements, the home. There are lease payments for the lease of the land for a homeowner in the land trust, none for the land bank. The responsibility for payment of property taxes. In the land bank's model, it is the homeowner is responsible for paying taxes on land and the home. And on the land trust model, the homeowner is also responsible for paying taxes on the land and the home. Utilities are both always the owner's responsibility. Maintenance and repair of both the land and the home are the owner's responsibility in both models. Under the land bank's model, the land bank retains the right of first refusal, meaning it can purchase the property back at a set price. Under the land trust model, it's the land trust that has that right of first refusal. The resale price, as I mentioned earlier in the land trust model, is the lower of 2 calculations. Is too complicated for me to describe, but if anyone's really interested, please go to Exhibit B. The example under the land bank model, it is the original price paid by the owner plus closing costs paid at purchase and closing costs, estimated closing costs to be paid at resale by the home buyer, all adjusted for inflation. I also gave in the table examples of what the resale price would be, making certain assumptions about inflation rate and appraised value of the land. In both the land trust, the land bank's model is the resale price is higher for the homeowner. The land trust price, resale price is lower. And on the other hand, the land trust home can never be sold at market value, whereas under the land bank's model, the home can be sold at market value no more than 30 years after the original purchase. Capital improvements, there's no provision in the land bank's resale calculation because there's a limited affordability period. So if an owner makes a capital improvement to the home, that is not included in the resale price. Under the land trusts model, if a capital improvement occurs with their consent, then 50% of that cost is added to the resale price calculation, but depreciated over 10 years. Insurance, the land bank doesn't have any homeowners insurance requirements. That's usually the mortgage lender's requirement. And under the land trusts model, both replacement and liability insurance are required. And then the proceeds of a mortgage foreclosure under the land bank model, the resale and purchaser restriction ends when the mortgage company forecloses upon the mortgage. And the proceeds from the sale, if there are any, after satisfaction of the mortgage, are paid to the owner. Under the land trusts model, the land trust has the right to purchase the mortgage for the amount owed to the lender. If the home is sold by the lender to another party, then after the mortgage is paid off, the homeowner receives a restricted amount, what they would have received had they sold it as, under the land trust's calculation, and then the land trust receives the excess. There also is a summary of the relative advantages and disadvantages of each. I don't think I will read them here because it's quite lengthy, but basically the basic summary is the land trust model is heavily weighted in favor of long-term or permanent affordability, whereas the land bank provisions are shorter term affordability, but a higher, more wealth creation for the homeowner. Whereas for under the land trust model, the homeowner has a lower increase in equity after 10 years. I hope that summarizes everything fairly clearly. The staff's recommendation for this particular resolution based on the current provisions of the land trust is that the board reject this request based on the current structure of the land trust model, and maintain the project as originally approved, requiring the homes to be sold at a maximum price of $195,000 to purchasers at or below 80% of AMI, with the land bank's reported declaration of restrictive covenants governing the sale and resale of the homes, as well as the affordability period. And just to expand upon that, the reason the staff reached that recommendation was because this was originally a homeownership project, and the land bank felt strongly that the concerns of wealth creation were an important part of that disposition, and that the land trust model as currently structured in this case does not provide that sufficiently. And also that the financial burden of paying the property taxes for both land and home is unfair to a homeowner who only owns the home. And
Thank you, Andrea.
That concludes my presentation.
And did we receive any comments on this item prior to the meeting?
None from members of the public, but subsequently to the board package being posted and sent to the board, ASE did submit documentation indicating two things. One, that they received $300,000 in state funding, PHARE, P-H-A-R-E, for the construction of the homes on these properties based on them being in the land trust. And secondly, that they were awarded $750,000 from Federal Home Loan Bank for another project that was for 5 PHA properties ASE was going to renovate or build new on. It did not come to fruition, and therefore ASE submitted a request to Federal Home Loan Bank to change their award to apply to the 5 properties on East Somerset Street. Those were 5 of the 9 it received from the land bank for the 80% AMI project. And also based upon the assurance that ASE would place them in the land trust. And apparently approval of this change or the modification in the Federal Home Loan Bank's award requires a modified purchasing development agreement, and I would assume a declaration of restrictive covenants as well, since ours is currently not what the land trust wants.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Do we have any questions or comments about this item from the board?
Just one question. You had mentioned in the land bank's, I don't know if it's official disposition policies or it's just in the PDA, but the maximum affordability period the land bank allows for homeownership projects is only 30 years. Did I hear that correct? And what's the rationale for that?
So the disposition policy provides for a 30-year mortgage for side yards and gardens. We don't place a mortgage on affordable homes because we don't provide the mortgage to the homeowner. That's the
Andrea, I think the confusion is there's the disposition policy of disposing land and the terms on disposing land for affordable development. And then there's housing terms where originally the legislation was 10 years. And if the first home buyer then sold the property in the first 10 years, there would be a calculation and then the 10 years would reset up to 30 years. With the advent of turn the key, that has been extended to 15 years. So the first home buyer would be responsible. So a way to think about this in a typical development that the land bank approves, the resale restriction and affordability restriction falls to the first home buyer. Not the developer develops the property. The developer is required to make sure that, and so is the land bank, make sure that the home buyer, the initial home buyer, is income qualified, meaning they meet the AMI requirements. That home buyer
Angel just freeze.
affordability.
Angel, was
He's
just-
back.
Okay,
Okay.
we lost you there for a second,
Oh.
Angel.
Sorry, where'd you lose me? Can you hear me now? All right.
yes.
So the home buyer, really the restrictions fall to the home buyer on the affordability and resale. And that's 15 years. All right. With the advent of turn the key, which provides that soft second mortgage. I don't want to confuse the issue of disposing of land to a developer to develop affordable housing. That, of course, the initial home buyer has to meet the income requirement. All right. What this fundamentally is saying is that because in essence, because of the way this is structured with a long-term lease and with the improvement on top, the involvement of the developers is a longer period of time.
Okay, so under turn the key, we have sort of a maximum affordability period, but in general, the disposition policies does not cap the length of the affordability period for homeownership projects. Is that correct?
It doesn't cap it, it sets it. And it also sets the recourse and responsibilities.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item from the board? All right, seeing none, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Mr. Tapia.
Hey, again, thank you for all your time, the board. I know that been taking up a lot of time on your board meeting today, but it is very very important that that you guys really approve our our recommendation this is going to be a real hardship on our organization. As you can, as Andrea mentioned, this is $1 million worth of funding that we would have to reject and send back to FAIR and the Federal Home Loan Bank. If you take that $1 million, right, in comparison to ASE's annual budget, our annual budget is about $1.5 million. And the reason, again, we applied, we really tried to use some city funding. We try to use the turn the key, but having turn the key and the Federal Home Loan Bank would had too many soft seconds on the mortgages. So the reason we really went through this is because as we were working with the land bank, we thought that we were able to get the land trust model, amended and approved. And that's why we continue to fundraise, in order to develop these. Again, as I mentioned, it costs us about $350,000 to build these. We're selling them, first when we sold at $160, the rest we're selling them at $185. And the only way that we can do this is really through fundraising. Those fundraising dollars are very limited and very, very competitive. So we really, really would like to ask the board to approve our model. The reason we want, right, so we're really trying to put the land trust model in order to prevent gentrification and displacement. Gentrification and displacement in 10 years, you can sell this house, take all the equity out of it, and then we've lost yet another low-income neighborhood in Philadelphia, which is the same thing that we experienced. I'm a product of the neighborhood. I grew up in the North Square neighborhood. A lot of the home projects there that were done, fortunately, the first low-income family sold those, moved on, and that neighborhood has been completely lost. And there is no opportunity even for me to go back and try to purchase in that neighborhood. We really, really are trying to stop, displacement. And the Fairhill and St. Hugh neighborhood is one of the neighborhoods that are left that we still have time in order to do that. And the land trust model is the one way that we figured out that we can make this displacement and keep displacement into perpetuity. And we're not the only ones. When you're thinking about other nonprofits, WCRP has a land trust model. You have APM, Nueva Esperanza, Mount Vernon Manor. They're all are coming. We're just the first one that have been able to build units under this land trust model. So we really, really, it would be a detrimental, hardship, not just for us, right? Because, we have to give this money back. Then the next time that we go to apply to build homes in this manner, we're not going to be as lucky. And then ultimately, we would not be able to offer these to the residents of the Sand Hill and Fairhill neighborhood. So we plead with the board to approve this. And, sort of allow us to really fight gentrification and displacement. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Excuse me. And next we'll recognize Carlos Rendon.
Hello again, everyone. This is Carlos Rendon, hopefully for the last time this morning. On behalf of Councilmember Lozada, we are in support of this resolution for item 4C. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see any other members of the public that wish to comment, excuse me. So I'm going to throw it to Rebecca.
I have a quick question for Mr. Tapia. So I'm interested in understanding your take on the criticism that it's not fair to the homeowner that they pay taxes completely on the land and on the value of the improvement. What's your thinking there?
The Good Lands Trust is a nonprofit. We have submitted for a exemption on the taxes on the land. So we're currently working through that. If for some reason we do not receive that, then as a nonprofit, we will have to continue to fundraise to then be able to take on the taxes on the land. So we do understand, and that's why we set it up as a nonprofit in order to really try to get the taxes to be exempt. And then we also apply for tax abatements on the improvements, and we're also working through that.
I'm not an employee of the OPA, but I am not sure that that use would qualify for a nonprofit exemption.
Um,
I think it depends if the nonprofit is, I think the lease payment may be the trigger there.
Yeah, there's
You
that.
can't, I think the nonprofit could get a tax exemption if they weren't earning any money off of the land. So it's just something that there, yeah,
It's,
look into
yeah, that's
the
not a guarantee that
details
you'll
about
get that
that.
exemption.
Yeah,
Is my
but-
point.
Yeah, no, and again, as a nonprofit, I mean, I'll say we've been here for 40 years. We're going to be here for the next 100 years. We'll continue to fundraise to make sure that this does not burden homeowners. That is not our intent. We really want homeowners to enjoy our neighborhood as we continue to rebuild around them. Knowing that, you know, again, out of pocket, this is going to cost us about $200,000. So we are investing into this Good Lands Trust model. We do not want to burden homeowners, and we will fundraise. If the tax on the land becomes burdensome, we will continue to fundraise and continue to write applications to make sure that, you know, we're here to, you know, promote wealth building, but also promote the long-term affordability and displacement of our neighborhood.
I guess keeping with this for a little bit. So I guess kind of staff's analysis kind of separated into two different categories. I guess one category is the merit of permanent affordability versus wealth creation, right? And that's a big discussion. And obviously the land bank, the disposition policy has routes for any number of those. We'll put that to the side for now. We're looking at the second category, which is more structural, I guess, and some of the disagreements or issues about some of the terms and restrictions. So I guess I'd put it back to you, Harry. Is the trust model and structure as it relates to taxes, maintenance responsibilities, that level of thing, is that set in stone, or could time help figure out a compromise on some of these things as it relates to these properties?
Go ahead, Harry.
Can you hear me? Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a board, right, that will be part of ASE, homeowners, and stakeholders with the Good Lands Trust that we will continue to meet. There's bylaws. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made in the future, homeowners are part of the board. They have a say in, you know, any changes that need to be made. There is a provision if for some reason it needs to dissolve. Let's say we tried it didn't work, God forbid, then the land automatically goes to the homeowner. So if we need to dissolve it, it will, but it does have a working board that will be able to pivot if for some reason, let's say like, hey, the improvement formula isn't working, right? It's not really providing equity in the improvements that need to be made. Do we need to update the formula? Then the board has that option to say, yes, we need to change it to be 75% rather than 50% of the improvements. So you do have a working board, and as a homeowner, you do have stake in the board. You will have a seat on the board.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to Andrew's question, I maybe took his question a little bit differently, but there's some issues, it seems like, back to the chart that Andrea walked through, where there's different goals or policies suggested by what the Good Lands Trust is trying to accomplish and what the land bank current documents require. And so I took Andrew's question more, is there an openness or willingness to go back and have conversations with the land bank to look at like the recourse issue? What were to happen if the Good Lands Trust were no longer around? You know, who could the land bank still have recourse to the land portion of of that situation, or things like that. So I guess the question is there an opportunity here, given the fact that we need to, as a land bank entity, be able to dispose of land to community land trusts, because it's not the only land trust property that's going to be coming forth. Is there an opportunity to figure out how do we address some of these apparent conflicts up front now, not 5-10 years down the road?
So Harry, I think that's a question to you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's
So
okay.
yes. Yes, we're definitely willing. We take the restrictions that we had under the land bank as a minimum, right? Or minimum requirements. We're not, we're definitely open to exploring what happens if, God forbid, 10 years from now, yes, the land bank, you know, sort of goes out of business, and do we still have the requirement to the Philadelphia Land Bank that we need to revert the land back to. So we're definitely open to that. We'll definitely work it out between us and the land bank, but definitely.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, so before I call, and I'm sorry, I can't call a question yet. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none. Before I call the question, just a couple of things, right? I think this has been pointed out a couple times, but the land trust model definitely has a little more emphasis on long-term affordability, a little bit less emphasis on wealth creation. However, it precludes neither, right? These can still have a little bit of wealth creation, longer affordability term. The typical land bank model has a little bit more emphasis on wealth creation and a little bit less emphasis on affordability. But again, it still has a balance between both. They're just a little bit skewed. Looking through that table, it looks to me like there's some sort of minor differences, and then there's some bigger things. And it seems like if there was an ability to negotiate, particularly on the recourse piece, with what happens again if the homeowner forecloses, or if the land trust goes out of business or fails to be around for whatever reason, that we just work on that. And then this question about the taxation. So if those things are willing to continue to be worked on, I think that's a different response than potentially a direct up or down vote. And I do think that we are likely as a board to see more of this land trust model going forward. With that, I am going to call the question and ask for a motion on this item.
I'm a little confused, Anne. Are we calling a motion on the item as currently worded? Or are we suggesting that there be further discussion or negotiation to address some of the issues you just raised?
So I think what I'm saying is the board has the ability to make whatever motion they want to make on this item. That it's not restricted to just yes or no. You could make a modified motion if you so desire. Right, as chair, I can't make a motion, so I turn it over to the rest of the board.
I'd make a motion that I don't know if table is the right word, but that we work with ASE to negotiate terms that we are happier with.
Do I have okay, let me clarify. I think, right?
Do you need us to
There
table
are
it?
different types
What
of,
do we
yes,
have to do
different
here?
types of motions that can be made, right? There could be just a yes. There could be just a no. There could be a yes with provisions. There could be a table with provisions. There could, right? So those are let's say, so there's a yes, there's a no, there's a yes with caveats, and there's a table with caveats. So there's 4 potential types. So with that, how about a motion? I'm sorry,
Andrea?
hold on.
Sorry,
I have
I'm
my
sorry.
attorney Andrea saying, wait a minute.
Just for the benefit of the land bank staff, I would appreciate any motion other than a straight up or down motion to provide clear direction to the staff on how the board would like the staff to proceed.
So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as proposed with the caveat that the land bank staff and ASE go back to negotiate any differences to resolve this moving forward in an appropriate manner.
So
I'll
there's a
second.
motion on the table that
Just
has
to-
been made and
Sorry, just-
properly
oh,
seconded.
Right, okay,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
never mind.
Andrew.
No, I got it. I answered my own question in my head. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, and, okay. Any discussion on the motion?
So that being said, if we approve it and we, even with caveats, and we don't get to where we want to get to with negotiation, then where are we at? Because we've approved it. What happens?
Does it come back?
I think it
We
depends on,
could, I believe you could probably add that to the motion.
Wait, but did it already get seconded?
You seconded it.
no, Richard DeMarco.
It did, but we could have, I mean, we can have, I don't have Robert's Rules of Orders right in front of me, right? But I believe we could probably say what I meant to say was.
If I might make a suggestion, Chairperson, Madam Chair, is just looking at the board's reticent to like all jump in. Would the board feel more comfortable with, and I'll just throw this out there, you can reject it. I mean, there is a motion on the table that has been properly seconded. That would have to be withdrawn, but would the board feel much more comfortable with tabling the item with asking us in a specific time frame to negotiate, right? Because I think we need to be cognizant of the stressors on ASE, which they've articulated very clearly, that we come to a negotiated resolution and then bring it right back to the board.
Yeah, so I mean, and I hear that, and I would say, let me just add something else, is that if there was a resolution that was achievable, it would be great to just say, okay, you guys figured this out, go ahead, without necessarily having to come back. But
So the next
All right.
step is we have to decide whether or not we're going to vote on the motion that's before us, or if we're going to withdraw the motion. Is that correct?
correct. And just to reiterate, the motion is, oh, go ahead, Andrea, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that the resolution to approve it is based on the land trust provisions as currently structured. So,
Right, but we added the caveat saying it would
Okay.
be recommended only under the circumstance where the discrepancies were negotiated.
so my question then is, who makes the decision about whether they're
Right.
adequately?
So and that's to Rebecca's point, like, does then it have to come back to the board?
I'm not comfortable approving the resolution as written with the caveat that we'll negotiate it later. I think I'd rather submit a separate motion.
All right, well, we have a motion that's been on the floor that's been seconded. The person who made the motion, do you wish to amend your motion at all?
I will withdraw my motion and to allow another motion to be made.
Okay. So can I get a alternative motion?
Angel, what's a reasonable amount of time to negotiate this to not imperil Ase?
I think it's, I think we're willing to meet in the next couple of weeks. I mean, to get this resolved. I mean, we just need to get in a room with Ase and Ase's attorney. Really, the instrument question is the long-term lease. That's what has these terms.
I mean, I guess I make a motion to table this resolution until the land bank and Ase have had a chance to negotiate and bring it back next month.
Yeah, I think that last part is really important part of the motion, to be honest. I think we can't let this linger out several months.
Yeah.
I agree.
This has
I think
been
it should be
long
brought
enough as
back
it is, so.
immediately to the next, and that we schedule within this time period before posting of the next. Like, I would assume this is going to be agenda item for April, and that we would be prepping this, and we have a drop dead date that we have to come to negotiate that. I think we've been very specific as to what the terms are that we had concerns about. And I think there are also to Rick's larger issue about the policy and how we address land trusts. It would also give us time to reach out to revenue and to, how
OPA.
taxes,
OPA.
OPA, in terms of how taxes are addressed. I think that's something that kind of shifts how we can get to an amicable agreement on this.
All right, so I just want to make sure I have a correct understanding of the motion. The motion is on the table on the floor to table this for the next 30 days or whatever is the number of days that is the April Land Bank Board meeting. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And has that motion been seconded? Okay, so motion is on the table I'm sorry. Motion is on the floor to table this item until the April Land Bank Board meeting, and the expectation of the board is at that time, there would be a negotiated agreement between the land bank and the land trust. Can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, I have another question about order here. So the board has been discussing the motion. We have a motion on the floor and second. I do have Mr. Tapia's hand raised. Is it appropriate that we take comment on a motion from the board?
Andrea?
Does
I'd like
anybody know?
I'd like to hear them for what it's worth.
Okay. All right, let's
I think that because
recognize.
it pertains to the motion and it is.
Okay,
the
let's
part of-
recognize Harry. I was just checking here. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Harry.
thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to re-emphasize the urgency, right? We've built these and we've been carrying so much cost on security because of the neighborhood that we're building in and the security and break-ins that we've been having. I mean, we've been at this for the past 5 months already, and really, going back to last summer. So I really emphasize, for us to come to a resolution as soon as possible, especially since I've had one buyer that's been with us since November. He's been couch surfing because he's been waiting to get into this land trust model. So that's my one urgency is that, if we can please come to a solution as soon as possible in order to, be able to give these to homeowners that have been waiting a long time.
Go
May
ahead,
I ask
Andrea.
a clarifying question of Harry? Harry, is this the buyer for 3024 North American Street? Because my understanding was that was just going to be sold under the usual, under the model as it
Oh,
currently.
correct. Yes, correct.
So as soon as
So that person can go ahead and purchase the property, right?
they're not in the land trust model, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, but again, the other
Okay.
7 units, we have the other 7 units that,
Right.
you know,
But for the
Okay,
immediacy
and we
that
get
we
it. I think the board understands, like, this all needs to be resolved ASAP. All right, so just to clarify, motion on the table, or on the floor is we table this item until the April land bank meeting with the understanding to land bank staff and the land trust get in the room together and negotiate this until it works. All right, all in favor?
The other motion needs to be withdrawn.
I did that.
The other motion was withdrawn. Okay, all right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We work very closely.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you all. All right, this moves us on to the next section of our agenda, which is property disposition. We have one item, which is for affordable housing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First development item on the agenda is in regards to 5A1. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in the city's north central area to Savetta Property Group, specifically for the development of an affordable home ownership project in the city's 5th council district. The proposal calls for 70 single-family home ownership units, all affordable, all of which are 3 stories without basements, ranging between 1,300 and 1,400 square feet, containing 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and also to households with incomes at or below 100% of AMI. Maximum sales price for these units, as specified by the RFP, is capped at $280,000 per unit. Applications were solicited via a request for proposals for the properties, and the applicant was the most qualified bidder for the properties. The property list is extensive, and it includes the following: 621, 623, 625, 637, and 917 Diamond Street, 924, 927, 928, and 936 Edgeley Street, 926 and 928 French Street, 2106, 2112, 2140, 2141, 2142, 2143, 2151, 2166, 2170, 2172, 2215, 2217, and 2219 North Franklin Street. On North Marshall Street, we have 2112, 2130, 2144, and 2214. Also including 2105, 2107, 2109, 2110, 2111, 2112, 2113, 2119, 2121, 2133, 2140, 2143, 2146, and 2150 North Percy Street. Next set of addresses we have is 904, 910, and 912 West Susquehanna Avenue. We also have 2102, 2109, 2114, 2126, 2128, 2130, 2131, 2134, 2135, 2136, 2150, and 2210 North 7th Street, 2101, 2113, 2121, 2155, and 2167 through 69, and also 2201 North 8th Street, 2124, 2126, 2131, 2150, and 2165 North 9th Street. And finally, 2121 North 10th Street. The developer will purchase these properties at its bid price of $7,000. Evidence of project financing has been provided. The applicant remains in compliance and in good standing with the city of Philadelphia. Project will be subject to an economic opportunity plan. Project will be subject to an irrevocable power of attorney and right of re-entry reverter. And again, the sale of all units will include a declaration of restrictive covenants, and the units will be subject to use restrictions and income verification as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions or comments from the board on this item?
Yeah, so the packet said, what was the word? That it was the most qualified applicant, right? Which implies there were others. So what information can you provide around, you know, if there were other qualified applicants, and if so, were they applying for the same whole disposition versus the sub areas as in the original RFP?
So all the responses that we did receive, Andrew, were for the entire project as presented for all the sub-areas.
Any other questions or comments on this item from the board? Andrea, did we receive any comments from members of the public prior to the meeting on this item? Andrea, you're muted.
Apologies, this is the Hartranft disposition, correct? So we received a letter from North Central East RCO, which was one of the registered community organizations that was notified of the disposition and had participated in the required community meeting, outreach meeting by the developer. And they stated the concerns that came out of that meeting. They wanted to make sure that the project was for single family home ownership and wouldn't convert to multifamily units or Airbnb rentals. They were concerned about the impact on the existing homes during construction and whether the developer would be responsible to fix the damage. They would want the Civetta LLC's assurance that they would fix that damage in writing. They felt that the hours of construction from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. would be disruptive to their quality of life. They claimed that they stated that several of the parcels, that residents have claimed that several of the parcels are secured in an agreement with PHS and the city of Philadelphia for gardens or side yards, and that they have not been able to acquire those or preserve those gardens and side yards. And they did list the properties. They were surprised that residents would not be able to purchase these homes until after the first group of eligible for turn the key second mortgages would be considered, which is city employees. And they also felt that even with that soft second mortgage, the price was out of reach of many of the local residents. They say the project is too dense and eliminates many spaces that should be maintained as open space. They felt that there was not enough information on the Turn the Key program and whether it would benefit the community, and that they wanted to have these meetings, these informational meetings held before the RFP was released, and that they also wanted a city representative, I assume a land bank representative, to meet with them about the process of the program. And this was signed by Shirley Kitchen, who's president of the RCO. There was another email from Mr. Charles Dyches asking about this community meeting and what the purpose of it was, and whether the RCO's presence meant anything with respect to approval or not of the property. And then a third email from Global Consulting Group, which basically proposed reorganizing the RFP differently and reissuing it. And all of those will be attached to the minutes and were forwarded to the board.
Thank you, Andrea. And I see we have some members of the public with their hand up. So we're going to start with a call-in number we have, which is 267, and it ends in 434. Go ahead, caller. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, yes. Hi, my
Hi there.
question isn't pertaining. It's just
Can
a
you
general
state your
question
name for the record? Excuse me. Can you state your name for the record,
Sure.
please?
Davina Bellinger.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just have a general question. Did you want me to wait?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks for allowing the public to participate. I'm a homeowner and a resident of Philadelphia. My question is, are land bank opportunities only available to developers? And I have a comment. I heard one developer, stating that he doesn't have enough contractors. I know a number of insured minority contractors. How can the contractors get in touch with the developers for this opportunity? So I have two questions.
I put in the chat two links to our website. So the first one,
I'm on the. I see that information.
okay. So if we can, I guess if you, we put that.
So let's just read can you read
Sure.
out the information that you put in the chat, please?
So if you go to PHDC/land/buy land, you can see that there are multiple opportunities for the public to acquire properties from the land bank, whether it's a side or rear yard, a community garden, affordable housing project, business expansion, etc. Through those portals, you can actually identify a parcel and you can submit an application. If you have any questions, you are also able to reach us either via Andrea Sa's email. I'll put my email in there, which is angel, ANGEL.B.Rodriguez, which is RODRIGUEZ at phdc.phila.gov. And we will be more than happy to sit down and meet with you to walk you through the process and to discuss with you about opportunities that PHDC has for contractors.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you, caller. And next we have Shirley Kitchen. Go ahead, please. You should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. We can hear you if you go ahead with your comment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. The concerns that was expressed in the meetings, and this seemed to be a big problem, and that is the way that the project was presented. Most people feel as though the meeting should be held before the RFP is issued, where if their comments would mean something, even if it meant the way that the houses would be constructed. This way, it's already done. Most people were very disgusted. They say they thought it was a done deal. And also the project, the density of the project, it was a concern for several people, and they looked at numbers like this. If it's 71 units, then we're talking about at least 2 adults per house, perhaps 2 or 3 children with 2 or 3 bedrooms. So we're talking about close to 300 people being moved on 9 blocks, which has been vacant for years. And I took a look at it. I did not see any green. I think that should be a big consideration. And also, the way the homes was marketed, people felt as though they were left out and that they should have been considered along with the other possible home buyers. And the and other issues were already mentioned, but I am going to mention about the lots, the vacant lots here. I think that it should be addressed. I don't know what the policy is. I mean, I've been involved in it years ago. I mean, and I was never a city official, but it should be looked at. What happens to those lots that were maintained? And some people thought that it belonged to them. Some people maybe have an agreement with Philly More Beautiful. it seemed to be several to no agreement at all. And these people, not only did they maintain the lots, but it seemed to be emotional ties here too. We should be concerned about how we can get along with the city, how the city can serve people. And to just walk up now and say, hey, I'm taking this back, when we didn't even look to the fact that they couldn't possibly have enough barbecues or use to stay as equitable to the lots, because that part of the city, which I live a couple blocks from, is not included, hasn't been included in the city sweeps, which is usually maybe 4 times a year, they do a big sweep. The sweep usually stopped at Susquehanna Avenue. It did not go to Master Street because it was always stated that it was not enough trash. The area was kept clean for people. And I'm using the word was because now it is dirt everywhere. But from those years mentioned in the letter, they were kept clean by residents with no assistance from the Senate, from the city. And I think that you should set aside a meeting, look into it, and honestly see what policy can come up, what can be done here for these owners who, to the people that use the lots and kept them clean. The use, as I said, couldn't possibly match up to some kind of equity, but this should be given some attention. It seemed to me an up-to-date policy should be developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next we have Jahad Ali.
Hello, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a couple questions. I really like to start, but my name is Jahad Ali. I like to, may I proceed? May I proceed, Chairperson?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
I'd like to follow up on the question that Andrew Goodman asked, because I didn't really hear Jesse answer the question as I thought it was asked. How many other qualified developers were they?
Believe there were 2 other qualifications that came out. I can confirm that for you in a second. But in addition to the awardee, there were 2 other bidders here. And that information,
not bidders, but qualified.
Well, 2 other qualified bidders. That information is posted on our website on the development RFPs, the section of the page that actually defers you to previous opportunities. We post that award notification information if and when we secure some sort of approval at this point.
And what was the official name of the project?
It is the Harntraff 9th and Diamond RFP, I believe it is.
And what is the total market value of the parcels?
As specified in the fact sheet, the appraised value was $6.69 million for everything aggregately.
6.69 million. Let me ask you something else. When, how many other projects, strike that. When is the EOP plan required to be submitted for this project?
It will be finalized. What we tend to finalize, we finalize it prior to our board presentation of the project. So we will have final numbers prior to settlement. There is a period where the developers can check back in to finalize that plan before we kick off for settlement and close on the property.
And what about the marketing plan? When is that required to be submitted?
That is prior to the completion of construction. We will welcome that plan and we will evaluate it, and it is not to be it's not to commence until we approve it.
So is there, on the marketing plan, are the properties marketed to the fire department, the police department, and the school board? When will that happen?
That is part of the process. I believe this is a case where we do exclusively do the 30-day period to PHA, and then we follow up with the respective city agencies. Do I have that
So
correct? Paul?
if I could, all right, so this is qualified for turn the key.
Right.
So we have been doing outreach to all, like, to city employees. We do have a designated person who has been working with DC 33, 47, the other unions in the city, and with the city employees. Currently, we have about verified about 2,000 people in Turn the Key database, and we are qualifying them and filtering them out as to which, which applicants or people who have expressed interest are interested in this area. And then we're taking them through housing counseling. So that is underway. And we do have somebody that clearly is targeting and working with the local unions and city employees to get them to inform them of the opportunity and to get them to apply. And we also have housing counseling agencies that are working with them. So just,
I guess I'm confused.
If I could finish, just to clarify what Jesse was saying, in this situation with these RFPs, we are, for the first 30 days, once they're at a certain stage of construction, we refer to the developer qualified home buyers that we've already identified. First 30 days are city employees, and then the second 30 days are qualified home buyers, income qualified home buyers that have expressed interest. After that point, should none of those referrals, and we're really stacking the deck here so that they are qualified and they can get senior debt, and they will come out with a award letter for Turn the Key as a soft second mortgage. If by any chance, there are houses after that 60 days, then the proposed marketing plan that the developer submits would go into effect. And in that situation, that's where we would then qualify any prospective home buyer.
Yeah, I can't be the only one that's confused because, if the developer, then you get to a timeline where the developer has a marketing plan that has to occur within 30 days of him submitting that plan to the preferred list. It's just confusing. I don't want to waste too much more time, but that's something that the board really needs to get some clarity on. Because maybe,
and Mr. Ali, maybe you can reach to the staff after the meeting and try to have that conversation. But yes, we will work also to make sure that there's more clear information that's provided to the public in general, so it's clear.
I just want to finish my other question. So on this developer, this is one of the developers that I've heard his name down here numerous times. I don't even know what his total amount of award has been, but what has his deliverables been today? How many projects has he completed? Because I've seen some projects that he was awarded before. So I guess my question is, how many outstanding permits does he have that he was on the last award, I think in August of 22? How many of those are outstanding? And then my final question is, do you require him to have a performance deposit? And if not, why not?
So if you look at the report that was included in the board package, it does talk about where the status is of RFPs. I will say for this developer, they've had, I believe, 2 or 3 other RFPs awarded to them, and they are complete. And with the one which was just settled, which is in South Philadelphia and Wharton Street, they already have I believe, latest report, they have 6 properties where foundations are already set and they're already out of the ground. And that was for 26 affordable units at 80% of AMI with an ultimate sales price at $250. And that was approved last year. It took us a second to get to settlement because of deed transfers. But that settled, I believe, last November or December, Andrea? You're muted.
Are you talking about
Wharton Street.
Titan RFP?
Yeah.
I think that's settled because of the transfer issues in January, late December or January.
Okay.
I have to look it up. Sorry. There's so many.
But I don't have to talk about, I believe the developer's also on on this call. And so.
So one other thing, Angel, on the EOP plan, this developer, to me, from my investigation, for all his projects, for his last 25 or 30 units that he's built, he's used the same plumber, the same sprinkler guy, the same electrician. So I'm really wondering, how is he achieving what he says anecdotally is that he achieves, a high percentage of MBEs? Where's the proof? When do we get to see the documents and what he's able to achieve in terms of participation?
Madam Chair, I think we should recognize Brennan Tomasetti or Michael Tomasetti, which are on the call. They have their hands raised, and I think they can address how they identify subcontractors.
Okay, so I think there's a couple things here. So Mr. Ali, thank you for your questions. I think one of them is about the reporting and how to make that accessible. That is held by that piece of work. It does not lie with the land bank. That being said, it should definitely be available. And so that is something that another division of the city is working very hard to get that, so that that will be much more accessible, readily available and accessible to the public. That is a work in progress, but we are pushing very hard to get the past reports that need to be updated done. Unfortunately, we lost all of the staff that did that to another agency. So we have now staffed back up and we're churning to get that information out, but we're also trying to be more proactive in that, so that in the future, there will be easily accessible, readily accessible, transparent information available to the public. So we are working on that. Mr. Ali, I know that's something that is near and dear to your heart. You comment on it on a regular basis, and you are right. And we are listening to you. I'm sorry that we don't have it done, but that is job number one for the new staff that we've hired to do the compliance piece. I really need to move on to the next commenter because we're almost at noon and I got to make sure I got a quorum to vote these different items out, and we got a lot of hands up. So I am going to recognize Mr. Tomasetti to respond to some of the questions because he is the developer.
Hi, Brennan Tomasetti here.
Hi. Oh, sorry, Ms. Tomasetti, excuse me.
So just a few quick comments to address some of the questions on our latest Cross Street project RFP, which we recently completed. Our EOP numbers were 23% MBE and 19% WBE for a total of 42%, which we're super excited about. I know the target is 35, but we're happy to exceed that. And on 2 one-off projects that we currently have underway, we're trending over 50% for our EOP goals. So we're really pleased with that. We're constantly looking for new partnerships in the community, and we're, all ears if folks have recommendations there. And then there was another comment about, just the progress on Wharton Street. I too would have to check on the settlement date, the exact settlement date, but we have broken ground there to the tune of, we have 16 foundations completed rather, and 7 of those homes are now being framed.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Next, we have Christopher Miano.
Hello, my name is Christopher Miano. I live in the area of this development that's happening. I just had first just one comment. Shirley Kitchen from the RCO made several statements on feedback from the community, and I didn't hear any response from the board. Does the community feedback through the RCO not take any effect in this meeting, or how is that usually responded to?
We hear the feedback, and the board takes it into consideration when it makes its motion and votes on the item.
And then I guess just some of my comment question for myself is many of the units that are listed for this, that there are many neighbors who live adjacent to these lots who have over the last several years made requests for the lots. to be side yards or to do their own type of development kind of thing. And they've either been blocked or told that they can't have them, or feel like they haven't had an opportunity to be able to put in their own kind of bid for these things. I really wish that in some way the land bank could take that into consideration. This is a lot of lots to be giving to one developer for a very low price. I think right now it's almost $7,000 for each lot that is being given to the developer. And I think that there are several people in the community that could come up with that same dollar value amount for a lot that would be adjacent to a property that they own. Has there been any consideration to try and give folks who live next door to these lots first bid for this kind of thing?
Madam Chair, would you like me to answer that?
Yes, please.
All right, so in different areas, we work closely with council office to identify land strategy and what priorities are in this area. Affordable home ownership development was set as priority, which is why side yards and garden applications were not accepted, in which case we would be packaging and issuing an RFP, and therefore anyone would be able to apply for that. I think affordable housing, and we've worked closely with the council office, and we've done that with other council offices to really set priorities and make sure that we are able to work in tandem with council to issue an opportunity so that we can start tackling the affordable housing issue across the city. So that's the reason why those properties would not be available for side yards or gardens or one-off developments.
I mean, for those kinds of decisions, like is any consideration given for like development that has already happened in even just like the last 2 to 3 years? I mean, there are several multi-unit buildings that have been put on these exact blocks that multi-unit, multi-room units that I think really increase the population of a block to the point where like there's traffic issues with people being able to park or drive through the neighborhoods, and that trying to keep that balance of, how dense the population is going to be of a neighborhood, of a street. Specifically, I'm talking about Franklin Street, which I live on, and I'm a homeowner here. And in the last few years, that the population of the street has risen a lot, even since 2020. And that building and filling in all of the lots might not always be in the best interest of these neighborhoods, especially in the way that they currently are. And I think that there's a lot of feedback from neighbors here who thought that, making those comments through the RCO might be heard that way, but that also, if they should be coming and making those comments directly in these meetings, if it should be done that way, I'm not sure.
So I just want to point out all of the RFPs that we've issued are for single family housing, not for multifamily. The second issue is that when we issue an RFP, and we'll put this in the chat, we do have a mailing list. So whenever we post an RFP, we do have an opportunity where questions and answers for an RFP that have been put out, anyone is welcome to attend and can raise these questions. There have been instances where very pertinent questions have been asked while we, had an RFP during the solicitation period has been done, and we have made amendments to those. So that would be the appropriate time to do that. Again, I'll go back to, it's a very delicate balance that we work with the council office to look at what are developable opportunities for affordable housing. And it is we recognize it's a limited resource, and that overall quality of life, but an opportunity to develop more affordable housing is a priority, and it's a difficult balancing act, and we do that as a team issue. But I would say at this point in time, for RFPs, we do have a Q&A position, and you can actually submit your questions in writing. We do respond to all questions, and we post all of those answers.
Thank you, Mr. Miano. I have to move on to the next commenter in the interest of time. I still have several hands up on this item, and we are coming on, this meeting has already lasted a long time, and I want to make sure that we have a quorum in order to vote. So for ongoing public comment here, I'm going to limit everybody to 3 minutes. And if you've already provided comment, I'm not going to call on you again because we really need to be able to move through the agenda. So the next hand up we have is Kevin Brockenbrough.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello there. Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm the block captain of the 2100 block of North 8th Street. And one of the properties on the list, 2113. I maintained 2111 and 2113 for over 29 years. Just to be blindsided and have a developer come to me last year and say he bought one half of the garden. We took these gardens over 29 years ago and provided green space. We maintained these things. And it's like we're being blindsided, and all of our efforts, all of our maintenance, and all of our efforts to maintain these things was not taken into account. We should have been given first priority to any of these gardens. If you want to sell my garden from under me for $7,000, I should have been given first crack at it. Not blindsided. And then who's reimbursing me for all these years of maintenance? All this materials that I bought, all these tools and sweat equity I have invested. We haven't had a block party on my block in over 10 years, but we used our green space because we couldn't have block parties. Our gardens are important to us because we utilize our gardens. Our gardens aren't just there. That's why we maintain them. We have cookouts. We have parties when we can't have them in our homes because our homes aren't big enough for them. It provided safety because our gardens were fenced in until this developer tore my fence down. And nobody's looking out for us. City council darn sure isn't looking out for us. And apparently it seems like all decisions are being made without us being taken into consideration. My block has been overcome with all these monstrous houses which block out the sun, all this dirt and trash. I signed up with Philadelphia Beautiful and do the citywide cleanups. I do regular cleanups on my block, but I haven't been able to do none of this since these developers came in here. I track dirt in and out of my house. I don't know what's in this stuff. I'm constantly cleaning up construction materials that are all in front of my door and tracking this crap into my house. I don't know what's in none of this crap. There's no restitutions for the damages that are being done to my house every time these vehicles come up and down the street. And it's not fair to us residents. We need some green space. We have no parks. And only thing y'all looking at is finance here, finance there. But these developments are not conducive to our living conditions. Only thing you're doing is warehousing people and packing these people in on top of us.
Thank you, Mr. Brockenbrough. We appreciate the comments. I need to move on to the next commenter. The next one we have is Andrew Zeigel.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi. So we were actually the GC group that submitted the letter to the board prior to this meeting. And so a couple of things. We are absolutely in support of any affordable housing program that's happening in the community, any redevelopment, turn the key, or any other program that's there that can make the neighborhoods better, safer, cleaner, that can provide housing for the municipal workers, obviously police department, teachers, doctors, anyone that works for the city. But then at the same time, we kind of lost in transaction here. Because if you look at the sub areas, the size of the lots are completely different, and they're very different. For example, if you look at the sub area number 1, and I'll just give one example. On Percy Street, the size of the lots are 14 by 44. If you look at the sub area, let's say number 3, which is the Marshall Street, you have lots that are sized of 17 by 75. That's a much larger piece of land. The question is, how can this be an equality for a homeowner who's going to have a single family house on a 14 by 44 size lot, and the same homeowner who's going to have the same single family on a 17 by 75? That's another issue that we wanted to bring to your attention. Now, obviously, we would like to support Savita, but we want to support them only impartial to this RFP. We think that the RFP should be reviewed, and this, as it was mentioned originally, the developer doesn't have to take all the sub areas. They can take particular sub areas. So what we're suggesting in our letter, that maybe the sub area 1 and the sub area 5, which are more smaller sizes, more appropriate for single family dwellings, those should be given to the developer. Those are almost 26 single family homes. They're not spread out throughout all the blocks. They actually spread out between actually 2 blocks, because Idgley and Percy are right next to each other, and so is the Susquehanna 900 block. So that being said, the other sub areas, we believe, should be given back to the other developers and the opportunity to develop maybe duplexes, because you can build duplexes. And as we understand, after consulting with the Philadelphia Land Bank, duplexes are considered to be as part of the affordable housing units, as condos. Okay. Again, this is the information that has been provided to us from the city. And one final note that we wanted to make on this is that we are for redevelopment of this neighborhood. We had invested a lot of money, a lot of time. We'll also have a lot of projects that are happening in that area. The last thing we want is for that neighborhood to stay dirty. The last thing we want for that neighborhood to stay high in crime. The last thing we want for that neighborhood to stay, in the past. We want the neighborhood to move forward. But in order for
Thank you,
the neighborhood to
Mr.
move forward,
Zeigel. I need you to wrap up your comments, please.
that's it. Thank you, the board. We hope you can understand our concern. But again, like we said, we would like to support Savita, but not on the entire package, only on the particular lots that are appropriate for single family dwellings.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Perel Jure Simmons.
Yes, good afternoon. I just wanted to speak to the board first. Good afternoon, about the neighborhood being surveyed with intentions to only profit. First and foremost, no one contacted anyone from this neighborhood to give us any warning or make us aware that this project was taking place. But to remove a lot of the gates before this list was created, that's a big confusion that we're all having that's from this neighborhood in the first place. And as I have a question for Mr. Angel Rodriguez. Which elected council members are helping you make these decisions? Because we are trying to figure out who's helping make these decisions.
Well, this development is in the 5th district, so we work with that council office. The other developments that have been presented to the board, then in the 2nd, 1st, I believe we've done the 4th, and we've always been in contact with the council office prior to issuance of a request for proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Next, we have Charles Dyches.
Good afternoon. My question is for you, Mr. Rodriguez. Darrell Clark haven't been in this neighborhood unless it's election time. He don't know what the hell is going on down here, who owned what, who took care of what, who cleaned what. But for him to make decisions without talking to us, it's not right. It's not right for y'all just sell things underneath us that we've been taking care of for 30+ years. And who's gonna pay us for our work and our tools and everything else?
Thank you, Mr. Dyches. And next we have Adam Butler.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. I'll try to be really quick.
what I see in that package is a ton of properties that have been in use for a long time. And it's a familiar thing for me to look at a board package and see a bunch of properties that have occupied side yards being sent up in an RFP for development. And no one has obviously consulted with the people who are using those properties. And the board shouldn't approve this package till everyone has been engaged with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. All right, that concludes public comment on this item. If there's no other comments or questions from the board, I would entertain a motion. And go ahead, Mr. Sauer.
Yeah, just one question. Given the extensive comment from the community, I'd be curious to hear from the developer whether the proposed project has been modified in any way to respond to the community's concerns.
Can we unmute Ms. Tomasetti, please?
Hi, Brendan Tomasetti. Sorry, question one more time, Rick. Have we made any modifications to the project?
Yeah, based on the feedback from the community, whether it's from the RCO meetings or all the other comments we've heard from the community, how has the project been modified to respond to those concerns?
So a few of the things I heard with regard to side gardens, et cetera, all I can say is that we have green space planned, right? We have outdoor space planned for each of these homes. We are working with the Philadelphia Horticultural Society to implement trees to help with the greenery in the neighborhood. We modify each of the sites. There was some questions brought up about the lot size. Yes, we understand many of the lot sizes vary. We adjust the homes accordingly and, for the site, but the design for the landscape on the street. So if it's a 2-story, friendly block, we go with 2-story. If it's a 3-story friendly block, we fit the cityscape. And so we make adjustments in that way to conform to the neighborhood design. We believe strongly in the need for affordable housing in the city of Philadelphia, and we're grateful for the opportunity to help bring it.
Thank you. Rick, do you have any other questions before I go to Maria? Okay, Maria.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question related to the marketing of the units that are developed for land that has been donated by the land bank or sold at a minimum amount. I think it's great that we're giving preference to city employees to be able to buy the units first, but I think that places other groups at a disadvantage, lower income households that are in competition for limited housing stock in the city. So I think that's something that perhaps we can take up later on and for the board to discuss, because I think that there can be a better way to be able to provide a fairer process for marketing and also providing pathways for lower income households to be able to buy the limited housing stock that is available.
Yeah, I would just say to that preference has been legislated by City Council. So that is not something that could be changed by the Land Bank Board or the Policy Committee. It would have to actually be changed in City Council. Go ahead, Angel.
I just want, for the board's edification, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. If DC 33, who we've been marketing heavily, if you look at their salary range, they go from $29,000 to $59,000 on the union rate at the high end. So they're definitely like 80% and below. And this is who we're working with, trying to get them in houses. And they're also, when you think about DC 33, we're talking trash, streets, everybody that's responsible for the, infrastructure in the city. So I don't want it to be like this thing where, oh, everybody's got like these large salaries. We're not talking about that. We're talking about 80% and below in many of these unions that we're working with.
Thank you. Andrew Goodman.
Thanks. Just want to add voice to a couple of things that have come up along the way, because there's been a lot of discussion. So one on informationally, Jesse, I don't think it's right. I don't think there isn't an aggregated kind of summary sheet related to this RFP on the website, which is why I asked the question. There are for other RFPs, but not for others, or maybe there is and I just missed it.
That's
So
posted once we award it. They'll see that goes hand in hand upon receiving the award. If we don't get, well, not the award, but board approval, should this be approved, that will go up.
okay, so there's no further detail provided on the number of qualified applicants until after the board meeting.
That's correct. And that's after an item is approved at the board level.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's why talking about it at these board meetings is so important. Then also in the packet, purchase price is listed as $7,000, but I've heard it described a couple different ways. I read it as $7,000 for the whole disposition, not per parcel. So just want to clarify that because I heard, some of the public commenters said it a couple different ways. So I just want to, make sure that that's accurate into the record, because for the whole disposition versus per parcel is obviously a very different proposition. So just wanted to put that out there. And then as it relates to transparency, just want to, kind of hit on a couple things. Do want to, express gratitude to the staff because there didn't used to be RCO meeting requirements for these sorts of dispositions, right? And so this is a good thing. Because yeah, there used to not be this sort of thing, notification requirements in place for these types of dispositions. And I do think a lot of the questions that came up in the letter, as well as in the public comment, call up the need for even more, because the interconnectedness between the RFPs and the Turn the Key program and just the details of Turn the Key and what it entails or doesn't entail, these are all incredibly complicated and incredibly important. And so I think it's just want to note that we are, making progress, but still having kind of relevant folks from PHDC being, more present and available to answer some of these questions could go a long way, before they get to the board meetings. So I just want to hit on that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, board, you're on the board for a reason. You got to make a motion. I know we've heard a lot. There's a lot to consider on this one. But I do need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the disposition.
I'll second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the disposition of these properties for the development of affordable housing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
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 Okay, we've got 3 nays. Hold on, I gotta do a count now. Okay, with 3 nays, that means there's only 5 yays, so this item gets tabled because per the enabling legislation, there needs to be 6 board members that would vote in approval to dispose of any properties that are valued at over $50,000, right? I would make a request as chair to have the board, to have staff maybe work again with the council office and take a look at should any of these properties remain as community gardens or not. I know it's different from what was in the RFP, and I know there's already been conversations, but based on what we've heard, it sounds like maybe another conversation along that lines would make sense. Go ahead, Angel.
Could I ask, yeah, we will talk with the council office, but is that the reasoning why the board members are saying that? So if we have that conversation and we bring it back up, are we still going to get a nay? That's the question I have.
I would say the board members who said nay can provide that if they want to. They're not required to say why they said nay, I don't think, but if they want to provide more information about why they said nay, they are certainly able to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, that item is tabled and it will come back at a future agenda item, future agenda. All right, that brings us to item 5B, which is another development disposition for garden or open space.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Item 5B1. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of properties in North Philadelphia, specifically those west of Broad, to Sanctuary Farm, a nonprofit, for the stabilization of a community garden at 1901 North Ringgold Street and 1910 North 24th Street. The nonprofit maintains the adjacent lots and wants to continue to use the lots in these as requested as a community garden. The properties will be fenced, garden beds, a shed, a honey house, and beehives will be installed at 1910 North 24th Street. Vegetables grown on the lot will be for the neighborhood itself, and fruit trees will also be planted on 1901 North Ringgold Street. Sanctuary Farms purchasing the property for nominal, subject to a 30-year mortgage and note. The applicant is compliant and in good standing with the City of Philadelphia, will not be subject to an economic opportunity plan. And also the properties will be subject again to use restrictions as a community garden.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions or comments from the board on this item?
I think I've
Go
said it
ahead.
in previous meetings that we've got at least 2 of these side yards are in desirable neighborhoods that would benefit from affordable housing and have lots that are very expensive being marketed near them.
So this is
the
item
gardens before
5B,
item
the
5B1.
garden open
Oh,
space. We're
shoot,
not
I'm
on
sorry.
side yards yet. Is that okay? I just want to make sure
guess.
that I was, okay.
I just really, really want to make this point. I apologize.
Okay, we'll let you make it again in a couple minutes. All right, so this is, just to clarify, this is about a garden at 1901 North Ringgold Street and 1910 North 24th Street for a community garden, Sanctuary Farm, Philadelphia.
Right.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Go ahead, Andrea.
I just wanted to also add to this that the board had approved the disposition of 2106 North 24th Street to this same garden. So this is just an expansion of their garden. The other thing is that we did not receive any public comment with respect to this particular disposition.
Andrea, I think you might have said 2100 block, but it's the 1900 block. I think you.
I'm sorry, 1900, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
1906.
Thank you for that correction.
No problem.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak to this item? I see one hand up, Ruth Burchett. Go ahead, Ms. Burchett. You should be able to unmute and speak to the board. There you go.
If Andrea could mention again the address that's already been approved, because I am aware that there is a Sanctuary Farm active garden directly across the street from this location, and also on 2 corners of 22nd and Cecil B. Moore Avenue.
Yes, so we conveyed 1906 North 24th Street to Sanctuary Farm Villa. That was back in, I'm not sure, maybe, middle of last year, May of last year. They already owned 1908 North 24th Street. And now they're requesting 1910 North 24th Street and 1901 North Ringgold Street, which is a corner property of North Ringgold and West Berks and close to the existing garden.
And so and I am a homeowner in the 1900 block of a area street. And so my question is the land bank, or do you even ask any questions about how these entities dispense of the food that is prepared on these locations, whether it's for sale, whether it's for free to the community.
I'll let Jesse or Angel.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? She went in and out, but what I
My
thought I
que-
understood was if in fact there is a component of our evaluation that asks if in fact the community would be brought in at any aspect did I hear that right?
Well, no, that's not my question. My question is, early on, I participated as a volunteer on the one at 24th and Birch Street, for example. And I do recall that there was the community wasn't happy about the prospect of having to purchase, some of the food. So my question is with this entity acquiring so many vast open spaces in a community, and obviously they have the financial wherewithal to not only acquire the land, but also to develop it into these food spaces. Do you have any sense of rather they are providing the food for free or for sale?
That type of thing is disclosed in the application, but there are certain prohibitions. I'll let Angel speak to that.
Yeah, it really does depend. Revenue has a limit as to when you have to, like, if you're a business, you have to register as a business, and also how you apply. So if a group wants to apply as an urban farm and an ongoing business, it's, that's part of what they'll talk about, that how they're going to use the property. Typically, garden groups, really it's about a community benefiting use. In terms of that, and I believe Andrea wanted to.
Right, I think we have a member of the Sanctuary Farms. Can we unmute Andrea Vittori, who can maybe respond to some of these questions? Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, this is Andrea Vittori. I'm the executive director. We give away everything that we grow on all of our lots for free. We do that through directly at a produce stand that we run twice a week. And then we give food away through different programs that we run as well. We've never sold anything. So all of the food has been free since day one and will continue to be free.
Thank you, Ms. Vittori.
So what I would like the land bank to do, and I am aware, as I already stated, and I know you're pressed for time, but I already stated the issue around sale. So perhaps that was resolved, and I'm happy to hear that. My point to the land bank is if an entity has a plan for multiple locations and to acquire multiple locations, then that should be something that the community, the homeowners should have an opportunity to weigh in on, that this is intentional. As a homeowner, I'm only aware of this because I'm attending your meeting, and I'm grateful for the public comment opportunity. And also as the founder of a 33-year-old community development corporation, I also understand the obligation of entities coming into the community and making plans for, rather that be for open spaces, rather that be for affordable housing, or rather that be for to help address the issue of food insecurity. It still is an obligation of that, or should be rather, the culture of that organization to have a community planning process through which we can weigh in on it. And I'll rest my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Burchett. Appreciate
so
that.
I'm
all right. I don't see any other hands raised from the public, so I'm going to call the question on this item, which is again a disposition for a garden open space at 1901 North Ringgold Street and 1910 North 24th Street. Can I get a motion from the board?
I make a motion for approval.
Motion is second.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to approve disposition of 1901 North Ringgold Street and 1910 North 24th Street for use as a community garden. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries, and we are on to item C1, which are disposition of side yards. And unless there's, I know that one of our board members has a general comment about side yards, but excuse me, Jesse, why don't you read all three of them together and then we will consider them separately, please.
Sure thing. So item 5C collectively regarding the side yards. Today, we're asking the board to authorize the disposition of the following properties as side yards. Item 5C1 is in regards to 1217 Pennock Street. It's in the 5th District, specifically for Jonathan DeAlba and Leanne Early. Item 5C2 is in the 7th District, 2032 East Boston Street to Charles J. Keller and Colleen Foster. And item 5.3C is a pair of properties at 2410 and 2412 North Oriana Street in the 7th District. The applicant in that particular case is collectively Daniel McShane and Victoria Knoll. All the applicants are compliant and in good standing with the City of Philadelphia. These projects will not be subject to an open economic opportunity plan. Each of the properties will be subject to a 30-year mortgage and use restrictions for side yard use only. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions or comments about these side yards as a body on the board? Are there questions or comments related to 1217 Pennock Street? Go ahead, Andrea.
Yes, we did receive a comment regarding 1217 Pennock Street. And that was from the owner, from one of the adjacent the owner on the other side of the lot, who requested assurances that she would be able to get access to the side of her home for maintenance purposes, maintenance and repair purposes. Ashley Rivera.
Right, and it's my understanding that there's already a code provision on the books within the city code that grants the authority for any adjacent property owner to get access to make repairs to their homes. Is that accurate?
I believe that is accurate. This has come up before, and that's what we found. The homeowner would have to enforce if the actual lot owner refused to give access. The other homeowner would have to seek legal enforcement.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like we do have one hand raised on this item. So can we unmute Jacqueline Wiggins? Go ahead, Ms. Wiggins. You should be able to unmute yourself. Ms. Wiggins, can you unmute yourself? Ms. Wiggins? Unfortunately, oh, there we go. Okay, great.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got up for a moment. All right.
That's okay, no problem.
But I may be going back in time because I'm coming in as I'm coming in. But with respect to land bank policies, I really have some real concerns about policies and how they become reality when it comes to those leases and when it comes to the gardens, because the gardens and farms are being used to feed the people food is medicine, as we know. So those policies, you know, matter with respect to the concerns of the people, and they just cannot be ignored. So as I've listened, and this is maybe my first or second time with the land bank, is there a booklet that you have that would let the people know what you do and what we need to know? And I know our city council people are part of this as well, because they let us down when they don't inform us. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Wiggins, there is, if you go to the website, the PHDC website and land, all the policies and everything are on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, sure. Okay, did we receive any other, are there any other questions or comments from the board on any of these side yards? Andrea, I'm assuming we only one we received a comment on was the 1217 Pennock Street, which we've already addressed. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on any of these side yards? Seeing none, can I get a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion to dispose of the 3 side yards to the adjacent property owners.
I second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded to approve the disposition of these side yards as stated in the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right,
Oh,
motion carries. Yep, motion carries. Sorry about that. I actually pushed the wrong button. We would now normally go to any new business or old business, and I know that we have a number of folks that provided comment about land bank policy around mortgages on community gardens. I will just say we are 2.5 hours into this, and I've already missed a couple meetings that I'm supposed to be at, and I think we're probably about to lose a bunch of our members because this meeting has gone on so long. I don't want to ignore that issue, so I'm going to request that the folks that are concerned about that issue reach out to staff, and staff, if you could maybe schedule a meeting with the Land Bank Policy Committee to have representatives of the gardeners attend a policy committee meeting and maybe present their issues, and then have another meeting where the policy committee considers and maybe then brings back some recommendations around that to the board based on the concerns that we heard regarding that issue. That would.
Well, Madam Chair, just this is not new, right? I think it was first raised by the Neighborhood Gardens Trust quite some time ago. We've discussed it at the policy committee kind of in broad strokes going back maybe even over a year now, I think. At that point, the staff said that they would be kind of seeking an independent, I think financial analysis or assessment might be the wrong word here. I don't know if that has been completed, but either way, I think there's probably enough to actually make this a board agenda item. I would ask maybe that we just skip the policy committee step and go straight to April board agenda item. Because this has been out there for a while. And coming from many organizations that are otherwise, frequent and prolific collaborators with the land bank in the city. So in the interest of not belaboring it any longer, I would suggest it be and my understanding with the disposition policy is that, we do have jurisdiction because it's not legislated by the code. So I would suggest that we, skip the steps and try to speed it up.
I could clarify, the financial piece was along the lines of long-term leases and garden leases, which we did address. I think also there was the issue of the impact on what a self-amortizing mortgage would have on a nonprofit. But I also would, also state that it's not just the, the ordinance and for disposition, but also the executive order that we have to comply with. So.
Okay. So I'm happy to have this as an agenda item if people feel like that's where we're at. I want to recognize our couple board members, and then I will take some comment from the public on this item. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Rick.
I would certainly support bringing this before the board for discussion and decision. I do know that there, I think, are some dispositions or issues pending right now that have a time constraint. I think there was at least in reading some of the comment letters, I thought there was a March 31st deadline. So if we're sort of deferring this to the April board meeting, I don't know if there's a way to move back that deadline so that it won't negatively impact dispositions currently under consideration.
So the board should understand that those issues are related to the PRA, and it is the PRA's board that has to address that issue. So what was raised were PRA dispositions, not land bank dispositions. And also, if the land bank board is going to do something different, doesn't necessarily mean it would have to be presented to the PRA board.
So was there any, so did this come up at the most recent PRA board meeting then on the same topic?
This is an ongoing disposition over a year that has been going on negotiations between the PRA and Neighborhood Partners Trust.
No, I
All right,
understand
so
that.
it sounds like there's a specific issue disposition that's PRA board, but something that the land bank board needs to consider is this item probably as well. Go ahead, Maria.
Yes, I'm okay with moving the item to for future agenda. I just want, if because I'm part of the policy committee, but I haven't been allowed to attend meetings, I would say, for the last 7 months. So if there's a summary just to re-educate, I think, all of us on what the issues are, then I think we will be better prepared and the meeting can go smoother.
Yeah, well, we're going to need that for the board anyway, for the board to understand the different issues around this item. But yes.
Yeah, it should all,
And then
should all be part of the package. But I mean, I know we've been at this for more than 3 hours. I mean, there are kind of dozens and dozens of people that are here though. Is there any way to even do some abridged comment?
I said I was going to take some
Okay.
public comment on
Thank you.
that. So we have a hand up by Elizabeth Waring. Go ahead, Ms. Waring.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Waring, and I'm a member of West Powelton and the West Powelton Saunders Park Registered Community Organization, as well as the overseer of the Holly Street Neighbors Community Garden, and also a board member of the NGT. So I just want some clarity because I don't understand the need or the purpose for the 30-year amortization for the garden and green space. And also in the long run, I don't know what will happen in the 30 years, but who will benefit from this?
So staff, can you provide a quick response to that, please?
The 30-year self-amortizing mortgage is a tool to keep the property from being flipped in the past. Prior to the change in the disposition policies, there have been a number of situations where properties have been leveraged and lost or have been sold several times. This is partly due to the fact that title companies do not recognize or are not noticing as they should with our declarations of restricted covenant and also with our deed restrictions. So the mortgage actually shows up and they actually know they can't convey without a mortgage. So that is the first issue. It's to prevent flipping and also to provide recourse should the item not or the properties not be maintained in good order moving forward.
I don't think the maintenance of the properties are a problem, but the flipping, who would be doing the flipping? I just need some better understanding.
Usually it's the organization.
Okay. Well, I agree
And
with,
there was, I'm sorry, Ms. Warren, but I know you also had a question of what happens after the 30 years.
Yes.
So can staff respond to that as well, please?
Certainly, it would be a 30-year amortizing mortgage. So therefore it would just basically sunset. There wouldn't be a mortgage after 30 years. And also the amount due just goes down every year on an annual basis. So think of it this way, the value of the land is going to go up, the amount of the mortgage is going to go down. So the nonprofit ends up with more equity in the land.
Right, but at the end of the 30 years, it's the
own it.
garden owns it free and
Yeah.
clear.
Free and clear.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Waring. And next we have Mimi McKenzie.
I was going to say good morning, everyone, but I guess it's good afternoon. I'm Mimi McKenzie. I'm the legal director at the Public Interest Law Center. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll keep it very brief. I hope this board is aware that prior to this board meeting, the Law Center, along with 29 gardens, nonprofits, and allies, submitted a letter to the board asking that the board discontinue the 30-year mortgage and note on gardens and open space. I appreciate the board agreeing to make it an agenda item going forward. I can't urge you enough to please make that happen at the April board meeting. Frankly, I think there are a couple dozen people on this board meeting who've sat through multiple hours waiting to speak. So, we are disappointed, but at least I can say for the Law Center, we will be back in April. And we really hope that the board will take seriously the fact that this 30-year mortgage and note is a barrier for many of the organizations best suited to preserve community gardens from being able to do that. And we will certainly be back in force in April.
Okay, and we'll make sure you're early on the agenda too, so that you get the focus that you need. Go ahead, Ms. Son.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that the board would not have been able to reach a decision or take a vote on this policy request at this meeting anyhow, because we are subject to the Sunshine Act, and that requires that we post any agenda items or decisions 10 days prior, at least 10 days prior to the meeting, and included in the board package. So this,
right, which is why it's important that this be on the actual agenda so that we can have the conversation that needs to be had with all the public participation and hear all sides of the story. And as Board Member Goodman referred to, this has been going on for a long time. So hopefully we can finally get some resolution on this. Next we have Joshua Warner.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Warner. I am co-executive director of Urban Creators. We run Life Do Grow Farm on North 11th Street. We are about 2 blocks from the Civetta property matter that was tabled today. Just very succinctly, I am encouraged by the board's decision to hold a public meeting. We feel in the gardens and farms of Philadelphia that this 30-year mortgage practice is not necessary. We look forward to talking about that in our earliest convenience. To Andrew Goodman's point earlier, and also to back up Mr. Kevin Brockenborough of North 8th Street, also a neighbor of ours, we feel that the Land Bank PHDC needs to create a dedicated staff position that could be an actual liaison for us open spaces in our gardens. Furthermore, the board of directors for the Land Bank should also strongly consider exploring a subcommittee that is dedicated only to gardens and open spaces. I noticed that Mr. Rodriguez's executive report at the top of this meeting had wonderful things to say about affordable housing starts, RFPs completed, nothing to say about gardens and open spaces, except for the 2 that we saw today on the agenda. I'd like to know how the Land Bank is doing in terms of its strategic plan goals for open spaces and gardens. And perhaps if this, as we are all saying, if this 30-year mortgage is a true barrier and impediment. I feel that this as a tool to prevent flipping is frankly kind of a tired excuse. There are other nominal disposition means that the Land Bank's in the land bank's toolbox. And the fact that, quote, the value of our gardens and open space goes up while the mortgage goes down, that I feel is false. If we're attaching perpetual open space like deed restrictions on this land, no, the value of the land doesn't go up. Yet we carry the debt at the market price for the land across 30 years. That is patently unfair. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for your dedication. This is not an easy job. I look forward to speaking to you in April.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. And next we have Jenny Greenberg. Ms. Greenberg, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks, sorry. Good
That's okay.
afternoon. I'm Jenny Greenberg, Executive Director of Neighborhood Gardens Trust, Philadelphia's land trust for the protection of community gardens and green spaces. And really pleased to hear that we'll be delving further into the issue of the 30-year mortgage at the April meeting. This has become quite time sensitive for NGT, so I am going to share some of our concerns right now. Since 1986, we've been able to preserve 51 gardens, many in partnership with the city, and are working to secure an additional 25 gardens that have insecure land tenure. And between 2015 and 19, we acquired 44 parcels at 15 gardens through nominal fee disposition with the city. They were deed restricted for open space. There was a restrictive covenant. The land would revert to the city if the garden became inactive. And those restrictions make sense to us. But since 2020, our work on city land has been at a standstill. We have 10 pending garden acquisitions. We're eager to go to settlement, but we can't move forward because of the terms of the mortgage that the Land Bank and Redevelopment Authority are requiring, although they're not required by the disposition policy. So despite our best efforts to engage PHDC on the substantive issues, on February 17th, we were told we must either accept the mortgage terms or forgo acquiring 3 large food producing gardens that will add more than $5 million in liabilities to our books. And we have until March 31st to decide. In addition to the onerous financial and accounting implications from the perspective of a land trust, a green space with a mortgage that allows the city to foreclose is not truly protected. I don't know how I can tell gardeners who've cared for a property for 40 years that if a city inspector decides it's not clean and free of debris, they can take it back. Gardens receive large soil deliveries, they spread salt hay, they grow tall, stocky pollinators, and they lay dormant in the winter. Clean and free of debris is not an acceptable threshold. The premise of the mortgage is discounting decades of hard work invested by thousands of residents to maintain lots when the city failed to do so, and it overlooks millions of dollars invested by community government and philanthropy. And it conveys distrust and disrespect, which is unwarranted. So we really look forward to working with you to figure out how to achieve the land bank's goals without harming the groups that are doing this critical work to make our city safer, healthier, and more just.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberg. Next, we have Madeline Ahola.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Madeline Ahola, and I'm speaking on behalf of the People's Kitchen, which is a free restaurant located in South Philly that began in the midst of the pandemic in 2021. Since then, we have provided over 250,000 free meals to the community, and we continue to do so every single day outside of the kitchen. Our organization has also converted 25 vacant lots in Southwest Philadelphia into free community gardens that provide fresh produce to both the neighbors and to our kitchen to provide these free meals. These gardens have proven to be extremely valuable in fostering social cohesion, in engaging neighbors in sustainable gardening and harvesting skills, and in increasing direct access to fresh food. In order to continue the valuable work of these gardens, we do need access to the land in a way that is fair and stable, with full transparency in legal land tenure, with more clearly defined restrictive terms, and through ending the 30-year mortgage. Throughout the harvesting season, our gardens are full of fruits and vegetables and many other forms of reused and composted produce, such as winterizing corn stalks, which could be considered debris, given the ambiguous language of the policy. We firmly believe that our neighbors deserve equal access to fresh, nutritious produce, and these community gardens are really a dependable way to ensure that this access is easy and sustainable. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to hear us out.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ohola. And next we have Jeff Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just wanted to ask, I'm the president of Arcadia Commons. We have 3 green spaces in East Kensington. I heard, I'm not sure if it was from Angel Rodriguez, that the disposition policy comes from the PRA. Is that true? No.
No, it's an ordinance that was passed by the city council in 2020 and then also enforced by the administration. So it's not, there are 2 separate agencies that were in question. So Arcadia Commons has received land from PRA in the past, and I believe, and then now you have an application to receive land from the land bank. So they're 2 separate agencies. They do follow the disposition policy. PRA has urban renewal law issues they have to contend with, but you've received land from PRA and you're also about to receive land from the land bank.
Thanks for clearing that up for me. Look forward to next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. And we have Amy Gottsigan.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Right, my name is Amy Gottsigan. I'm a volunteer with the Iglesias Gardens, so I appreciate everyone's time today. I'm also taking off of work to be present. The Iglesias Gardens has been working for many years to gain land security for our community space in North Philly. Our application to take ownership of our parcels from the land bank was approved by the board and city council 2 years ago now. After a very long wait with almost no engagement about the process, we were given disposition documents recently that contain many onerous conditions, most importantly, the 30-year mortgage. This mortgage we see as a punitive policy designed to uniquely put community spaces at risk. NGT and PILC have already outlined in great detail the many concerns that we share with this new policy. Provisions that allow the city to claw back land through broad and vague restrictive covenants will give the city unique leverage to penalize gardens in the future. These restrictions are being put in place to address numerous abuses of the system. We understand that, but the most obvious abuses of the land bank policies have been by developers and politicians, not by community gardens or neighborhood organizations. The input that we have received from our legal counsel is that these provisions will put us at substantial future risk and may impact our ability to fundraise and continue our work organizing in the community. We're asking for the board to reverse this decision and to ask the land bank management to properly engage with community stakeholders to fix the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Godson. And next we have Sonia.
Good afternoon. Thank you for going beyond the time to hear from us. I'm here on behalf of Soil Generation. We are a Black and Brown collective of grassroots farmers and organizers in Philadelphia. We were also co-authors of the first Urban Agriculture Strategic Plan, co-authored with Interface Studios, commissioned by the Department of Parks and Rec. And I'd like to urge the board to really take a look at all of the amazing data that came from that project, as well as policy recommendations, a process that the Land Bank, along with 17 other city agencies, were a part of co-creating. And so I think there's a lot of really great data that's in that plan that really backs up all of the narratives that our communities have been saying for a long time, including urban agriculture being more than a hobby. I think our biggest challenge around political advocacy has been narrative shift. And so the plan is not just about gardeners, it's a comprehensive local food system reimagination and understanding why supporting urban agriculture, not just as a community resource, but as a source of being able to build economic wealth and stability in communities is so important. And so please take a look at that. It's dense with a lot of richness and a lot of hard work that our gardeners participated in developing while their land is simultaneously secure. We were engaging with our community to build this plan, and it's heartbreaking that simultaneously those same gardeners are getting news about their land being potentially sold and developed. So thank you for your time, and please take a look at that. Thanks.
Thank you. And next we have Elizabeth Way.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Way. I represent the Hawthorne Community Garden. We've been a garden for the last 7 years, took over a construction dump, and really over the years and hard work have converted it to 23 raised boxes with many families of our immediate neighborhood taking advantage of it. We have been working with NGT for the last 3-4 years to have the land be protected as a garden. And my garden is actually one of the ones that is under this March 31st deadline. And I just would like to urge you to reconsider some of the terms of this 30-year mortgage lease as being just too onerous for communities to take on, and urge you to consider better terms to help preserve green space. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Way. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, but I do look for, Alexander Miller.
Oh, there we go. Am I on mute button now? All right, yeah, I'll go really fast because I'm not going to say anything too novel. I'm speaking for a small community garden called the Farm on Florence. Like everyone else, we grow fruits, vegetables, flowers, trees, and it's a place for community bonding. It's a place for the kids. It makes the area pretty. We do charitable donations of produce to the local community, propagate flora, all that stuff. Yeah, I just want to be one more voice emphasizing that like the Farm on Florence is a life-sized feature for many of our gardeners. This is like where they socialize with other humans. This is where they get exercise. This is where they go outside. Like it's not just a garden, and we need we exist because of the land bank, because of NGT and our partners in the community, and we are completely vulnerable to you. And it's not all tracked. Like the happiness and good that these places produce there's no real number you can point to. It's not a quantitative kind of thing. So yeah, please. Yeah, we're very, very wary of the possibility of a garden being yanked at someone's discretion. And yeah, I'll stop because it's been 3 hours. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And we have Mel Oliver. Go ahead, Mr. Oliver. You're unmuted. You should be able to speak and we should be able to hear you.
Hello.
Mr. Oliver, there we go. Hello?
Oh, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Mr. Oliver? All right, let's go to Jovi and Patterson, and hopefully Mr. Oliver can rectify his tech issues. Mr. Patterson, or Miss Patterson, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's fine. It's Jovian
Okay.
From Original American Foundation, a small nonprofit in Southwest Philadelphia. We were fortunate enough to get a few land plots from you guys a couple of months ago. Just second the emotions on the other community gardens, just putting in the word to please rethink the 30-year mortgage. We're a small nonprofit. We get most of our funds from grants and things like that. And as far as exemptions is concerned, I think we have to be like flat out owners to get some of the tax exemptions for the land, to my knowledge. So that would be a really great thing to concentrate on using our funds for purposes to grow the garden for the people. And we do a lot of teaching and stuff like that. So it definitely would be a good thing to have that looked at and to get the 30-year mortgage rethought. So I yield there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. All right, I don't see any other hands up, but we will be considering this as an agenda item. Oh, no, we do. Jeff Carpinetta.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Hey, thank you to all for going the extra mile to try to give a chance for everybody to speak today and for placing this on the agenda next month. I'm involved in the Arcadia Commons project, but also was the original author of a green space protection plan in East Kensington next to Fishtown. So I'm a board member of the East Kensington Neighbors Association, and I've been involved in many different spaces. And I think the heart of this conversation comes down to what Mr. Rodriguez expressed was this deep concern that people would betray the trust and the intention of the conveyance, and then, flip these properties for gain. And theoretically, that's a possibility. But what I would ask everybody at this table to do would be to really do an honest check on what is the history, where were the abuses, and when you live in Philadelphia long enough, you accumulate this sort of archive of bad things that have happened around the city. It's just part of what we know as Philadelphians. There's been different disasters, there's been different abuses, there's been different corruptions in City Hall. And as to my knowledge, and I haven't studied it, but there's been a lot of abuse in funny handoffs to developers, some abusing of the side yard situation, in terms of the flipping and where greed came into play. But if you look at the history of NGT and this long list of gardeners, there's been so much investment, so much heart, so much integrity. That's what I wish someone was saying here, is that this 30-year mortgage is so out of sync with what the truth is on the record of how these folks have handled themselves in communities and the investment that they make. The idea that there's going to be a flip and the mortgage is going to be the way that there's it seems far-fetched to me at like 3 different junctures. And I ask you to consider that like it's theoretically possible, but for you to address that in this sort of hyper vigilant way about what these gardeners might do, specifically NGT, is really putting a weight on everybody through history and through the decades. It's just not reasonable, just not fair, and doesn't seem to properly show regard for what's been invested. And but anyway, I thank you for your work and look forward to talking about it more. And in my view, the most where the carefulness needs to be is in an earnest review of the people that come before you looking for these opportunities. And to have though no monthly payment required, to have these things on the books, with these kinds of land values is really sort of crushing. Final footnote, a lot of the gardeners have been upon the land long before it was of value. And they have been putting their time in and their dollars and their commitment for their deep values. And now that the land, these administrative processes that the city have been taking decades, right? But it was never about that, really, for most of us. But anyway, thank you for your work and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Next, we have Oranika Fields. Go ahead, please. You should be able to unmute yourself. Oranika Fields, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry for taking up your time. I would like to say that the More to Love Garden doesn't have the capital to be able to be in a 30-year mortgage. We would love to own the ground, but right now we don't have the capital to, and it's like unfeasible.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Next, we have Elizabeth Waring.
I'm sorry, I put my hand up by mistake. I think everyone has covered what I wanted to say pretty much. It would only be redundant.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, I think we've heard from folks and I think we're good. And just again, we will hear this as an actual agenda item on the April agenda. And we look forward to a continued robust discussion on that item. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I will gladly make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, everybody, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I know this has been a long meeting, but I do appreciate the members of the public who hung in here and waited to testify. And I didn't mean by saying that this was a long meeting to cut people off and that we wouldn't take testimony. So I apologize for that. We are always interested, but I do want to be respectful of everybody's time as well. So we look forward to continuing the conversation next month. I'm sure we'll have another robust discussion. All right, take care. Be well, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.